All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer covering the global polypropylene market trends for the second week of July 2026. We've got some truly fascinating shifts happening across the global supply chain right now, and we're going to unpack data that is absolutely going to impact your next major procurement cycle. Today's insights are pulled directly from the Polymer Bazaar intelligence report. And honestly, if you've been feeling a shift in the market winds lately, you are definitely not imagining it. We are witnessing a very real, widespread global softening, and the data confirms a serious change in momentum. So, what's on the docket for today? We're going to hit the global polypropylene market softening, the US and European slump, do a quick spot analysis of Turkey and China, check out an AI chatbot for instant updates, and then wrap it all up with a deep dive into the Indian procurement strategy. Okay, Part 1, the global polypropylene market softening. Moving right into Part 2, the US and European market slump. Let's establish our baseline here. Across the board, off-season demand destruction and falling monomer costs are just totally reshaping the landscape. Over in the US, upstream pressure is building fast. Down at major energy hubs like Mont Belvieu, Texas, spot propane values were sitting at about 70 cents a gallon, but over the trading week leading up to July 9th, they steadily eroded, dropping nearly 4% in a single week, down to roughly 67 cents a gallon. You've got abundant supply meeting lackluster buying, and it's literally pulling the rug right out from under the pricing structures. But Europe? Wow. Europe is a whole different beast right now. The European propylene monthly contract price for July absolutely crashed by a staggering 190 euros. Let that sink in for a second. That plummets the price from June's 1,555 euros down to just 1,365 euros per metric ton. Imports are high, demand is totally muted, and buyers are firmly sitting on the sidelines. The numbers paint a pretty stark picture. You've got this wild contrast between moderate dips in the US and massive plunges in Europe. On an FAS Houston basis, US homopolymer dropped by just $12 to $11.90, and copolymer slipped $11 to $12.56. Not a huge deal, right? But then look at free-delivered Northwestern Europe. Both homopolymer and copolymer plunged by a flat 100 euros per metric ton. That is a market where buyers have completely vanished and confidence is entirely frozen. Section 3. Turkey and China spot analysis. So, shifting our focus out east, we are seeing different regional flavors of the exact same sluggish dynamics. The overarching theme is definitely off-season softening, but the local reactions are vastly different. Turkey took a heavy beating due to profound seasonal dullness. Homopolymers tumbled by $110 down to $1,028 per metric ton, and copolymers dropped $50. Meanwhile, China is a fascinating contrast. Downstream demand there is incredibly soft, just like everywhere else. But they actually managed to maintain domestic spot prices at 8,450 RMB. Why? Because tighter domestic supply in that specific region is holding the floor up, even as import supplies are gearing up to rise. Section 4. AI Chatbot Instant Market Updates. Now, before we tackle the complexities of the Indian market, here is a super quick, seamlessly integrated tool to keep this kind of intelligence right in your pocket. Because honestly, in a market that's dropping 190 euros in a single month, speed is everything. If you just WhatsApp the letters PP to +91 93746 24365, you bypass all the noise. You get future trends, weekly reports, and price predictions beamed straight to your phone in about 5 seconds. It is a game changer for staying anchored to the facts while the market is bouncing around. And finally, Section 5, the Indian Procurement Strategy Outlook. You would think, right, with the US dipping and Europe totally crashing, that India would just follow suit. The external pressure is definitely mounting. For July 2026 shipments, imported PP copolymer offers dropped down to about $1,140 per metric ton on a CIF Nava Sheva basis. Yet, Indian domestic producers held the line. They announced absolutely zero change in prices this week, completely unchanged. And this is despite a huge wave of pessimism from processors who are dealing with seriously lethargic sales of their own finished goods. You can practically feel the standoff between these cheap imports and stubborn domestic pricing. All of this builds up to a massive ticking clock. We had the trade-in week close on July 9th, but the real focal point, the date everyone is sweating over, is the looming July 15th, 2026 deadline. That is exactly when the current domestic price protection expires. Literally everything the sector is doing right now revolves around this one upcoming milestone. And with geopolitical tensions injecting even more chaos into the mix, it all boils down to this. Will the government of India grant another BCD extension or just let it expire? That is the million-dollar question, sparking intense speculation across the bazaar.
Without getting into the politics of it at all, the simple economic reality is that this impending decision has thrown buyers into a massive holding pattern.
So what's the game plan? Here is our concrete procurement advice. Number 1, stay hyper-vigilant and wait for clarity on that BCD extension. Number 2, keep a very close eye on the recent freight disruptions hitting exports out of the Middle East, because that logistics crunch could very well force the hand of domestic Indian producers when it comes to pricing. We strongly advise converters to remain highly cautious and intensely strategic with raw materials. Basically, don't over-leverage yourself until that July 15th picture finally clears up. To dig into these numbers yourself and map out your specific strategy, go ahead and grab the full PDF report at POLYMERBAZAAR.com. Or if you need to make a strategic move right now in the Indian market, get in touch with the relationship manager at +91 93139 24365 for immediate dedicated assistance.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on for your own supply chain. With European prices crashing by €100 and that critical July 15th deadline looming over India, are you actually positioned to absorb the shock if domestic price protection isn't extended? How is that Middle East freight crunch going to reshape your next big procurement move? Take a hard look at your inventory and plan your next steps very carefully. Thanks for tuning into this explainer. Stay focused out there and happy learning.